Welcome to On Film, a podcast where I interview film professionals as they tell me who they are, what they do, and their journeys within the film industry. I'm Aadyaa Shah. Today, I'm going to be talking to Shreya Vaidya, a screenwriter and filmmaker who has over 10 years of experience working in the industry. And she's had the most interesting journey so far, from working with Irrfan Khan on his film Puzzle to writing the feature film What Are the Odds when she was just a teenager to making her directorial debut with Closeted Comic. It's been super interesting to hear her talk about her experiences so far. Shreya, hi, welcome.
Hi.
Hi. Cool, thanks for doing this. So, what I want to know first is I also now want to preface a little bit of a conversation before we started recording for our listeners, where I think you had mentioned that I already know your journey
Right.
because we've also worked together in the past. So I think it'll be very interesting to sort of, go through it again. And it's very, I think, hearing things about your story is very intriguing to sort of see how things have happened and to sort of see how you've worked in different spaces. So, what I wanted to know first, before we get into majority of it, is did you always want to write?
I did. I did know I wanted to do something creative, and writing was like a big part of that dream because as a kid, I would write like scripts and with my best friend, and we were like always coming up with like sketches. And I thought I would write for SNL one day. Like that was like my dream. So yeah, it was always a thing, but I didn't know how it would if it would actually manifest the way I imagined it to. And yeah, so it was always a thing like that. My mom keeps saying like you always wanted to write. Sometimes you don't have a perspective on it. Like I was like, did I always want to write, or was I just like did that happen later? And she's like, no, as a kid you had a lot of creative energy and spunk. Like you would always come up with scripts. Like we would literally type out scripts on Word and print it out and shoot. My dad would shoot it. Like there was this one with there was like magic underpants. Me and my best friend Aditi, we wrote a story about the superhero who had magic underpants when we were in the 7th grade, and my dad shot the whole thing. So it was always a thing for some reason.
What was Magic Underpants about?
Yeah, good question. It's honestly, I don't know why we were inspired by this specific idea, but we wrote this script about this guy who broke out of jail, and he's actually a superhero who wears magic underpants, and it's his story of how he wants to save the world. I have no idea where the script is, but if I find it, I'm going to send it to you. So maybe.
Please, please, this is really cool.
Is it?
So it no, because it's like it's a very interesting thing to sort of look at what the kind of stuff you've created when you were little or when you were sort of growing up and look at it from a grown up perspective and actually recall, like, you've probably, if you've forgotten certain details, um, the thing that you've created from your past actually kind of reminds you of those things, and you sort of get to also see how far you've come from that to this. So it would be very cool to sort of go back and read or look at something you've created from the past.
When you read it, you'll actually be surprised the 7th grader wrote it, because it had I don't mean to toot my own horn, but it was actually like quite funny. It was really funny. It had notes of like I was like when I was reading it, like the last time I found it was like a few years ago, and I was like, this is actually like good writing for a seventh grader. It was funny. I mean, I can't be too biased about it, but I think you think it's funny.
That's cool.
His name was Stinky, the guy who's underpants, the superhero.
Okay, nice. That's a
It's a good name.
cool, good name, very good name.
So anyway, that's
but
my yeah.
but I'm guessing, so if you and your friend wrote a script, I'm guessing you guys also watched movies when you were young.
Yeah, we watched a lot of movies. I watched a lot of like cartoons. Like I grew up on Cartoon Network, 90s, Nickelodeon. That was like my time to just, soak it all in. And I was a very like visual learner, so, and I would watch all these shows and I would like immediately like think like in that language, like, Drake and Josh, or like whether it was like the Amanda Show, and figure it out, all those kind of shows. It was like a big part of like shaping me as a person, I feel like, because that's really like the only thing I would connect with on a very personal level. I would like be like, oh my god, I love these people, like, and their humor, and I want to be them. So that was a big part of it. And then I think I always lean towards that. Like, I think growing up also, I would always find the people who are doing kind of different, not different cinema, but like, the Seth Rogans of the world who are trying to
Mhm.
create like they were big in the early 2000. I don't know when he started making those movies, but that was also like a big, like, sudden, like, I wanted to be him. I wanted to be in his
Okay.
club. Um, so yeah, I was always obsessed with things. I was a very obsessive person. So when I would watch something, I would like consume all of it. And this, I don't think that's a healthy thing, honestly, but it's kind of helped me creatively, because I don't know. That's the only way I learn, is if I obsess over something.
What also struck me when you mentioned Amanda Show and like the stuff on Nickelodeon, and then jumping to Seth Rogen and
Yeah,
that sort of that kind of pop culture is the writing has very distinct voices.
I
So
I like that. I like people who do their own thing. Like, even with anyone who does their own thing, like with a Childish Gambino. Like, I hate to be that person who's just bringing up these people who supposedly are woke or cool, but like I liked him even in Community, like before he was, the Atlanta guy. Like, I like those guys who would just be the ones who didn't fit in. Like, I would automatically like them. Um, and that's always been the kind of people that I don't know, I was just very, how I am. Like, I obsess over pop culture. I used to read magazines. My mom's an air hostess, so when she would go to New York, I would ask her to get like magazines or Us Weekly, People, and I would like devour all these celebrities and that whole world. Like, I was very enamored by it. And I wanted to be a big part. I wanted to be a part of it, but I didn't know in what capacity. Definitely not acting, but to be there behind the scenes and do something cool, maybe write my own show. Like, that was my game plan.
this would have been, I think, early 2000s. Was it early to mid 2000s?
I think so. I think, yeah, no, yeah, even mid 2000s, like about till 2011, 2012.
Huh.
And yeah, that was when we would watch like shows before Netflix was there. We would just like burn the CDs and go through all those DVDs in a day. I remember finishing like shows in a day. Yeah, those were like,
That was like there was an explosion of content at that time, because I think you had of course you had Friends coming to an end in 2004, but I think it would reach us like at that point it was airing on Z Cafe, and it would
mm,
reach India at, you know,
yeah.
way after the entire season had aired in the US, till I think they figured out a way to sort of air them, let's say, a day after the US episode had aired. But you had, I think, things like Friends, plus I think then you had The Office, plus you had How I Met Your Mother. So I remember also seeing friends of mine very similarly also being obsessed with it and adopting, you know, adopting dialogues from there almost as their own.
And that's how I learned how to write any kind of scene, was just to model those comedy shows. I would watch like any kind of scene, then I'd be like, oh, this is how a scene is written, this is how you're funny. It's all by just watching that kind of stuff. But yeah, not only comedy. Like, I would watch The OC and One Tree Hill and 90210. I would watch everything. I wasn't just selective about my watching. That's the problem, is I ended up watching a lot of stuff and I didn't actually have a life. which that was a downside, was that I was like cooped up in my room watching stuff, and I would rather be doing that than going out and meeting people. That kind of became a part of my personality. Um, so yeah, there was no regulation of my consumption of media. It was just nonstop. So now I've actually have to scale back my consumption and become very aware of it, because I've realized like I use it pretty much as a crutch now. Like if I'm like for anything, like if there's any like silence in my life, I need like a show in the background, just to comfort me. But now I've been like, this is not healthy. I need to be okay with being alone and with my thoughts. Sorry, this got dark.
No, 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 it's okay.
Yeah.
I also like, for me, that's a hard relate because in school I was very much that kind of kid who would just watch TV. So I
Yeah.
would have my books on the side and I'd read also. But I was pretty much I was just shuttling between two worlds where I was watching and I was paying a lot of attention to the storylines within shows. So I was getting very, very attached to certain characters in certain shows. Like I remember 2006, 2007, Bones started airing on Star World over here. So I used to love that. So my love for TV and movies also somewhere carried into the space of books where I would read books which movies and films were
Based on.
based on. Yeah. So it was very interesting to sort of compare and contrast and see. And it also just gave me more to discover. But the downside of it is that none of my friends were really into that.
Uh,
So
yeah, I mean, they at least they knew how to compartmentalize. For me, it was very much that was my life, and those were the conversations I was having with TV characters, and what the actors are like in real life. I would go ahead and even look at like what kind of, like, I would be obsessed. Like, again, I said that's my personality, but I would be like, oh my god, what's their sun sign? Who are they dating? Were they compatible on set? What were the behind the scenes stories? Like, I wanted to be just like, I was sucked in. I was sucked in. They got me. I was in part of a cult, I felt like. And so yeah, that was very much, those were our books. When mom talks about, my mother was an avid reader as a kid, and she's a literature student. And till today, she reads a book almost a week. And she says, that's like my way to unwind. It's
mhm.
reading a book. And I said, I wish I had that. I wish I had that hobby. But my way of unwinding, sadly, is to watch something, which now has started to get tiresome, because there's been so much
Hmm.
content in the last, I guess, 3 years or 4 years, that even now the two of us, we can be like, it's enough. Like, I think we're done.
Hmm.
I think we're done for a while.
Yeah.
That's when I go back to like Friends or like something that's just old.
But moving on from, let's say, now watching television and unwinding with it, do you think this has sort of primed you for, let's say, a career in film?
Yeah, I think so. I think you need to be a little much of a film or TV nerd to really enjoy writing. Otherwise, I would question why you're in this business. You need to be a little obsessive and invested. And I think it has primed me a bit too. Because even when we were in a writer's room, like, a lot of our conversations are about other shows and about
Yeah.
plot lines and characters. That's kind of what we talk about. That's like our language, our shared
Mhm.
language. So yeah, I mean, without that, what do you have? Like, I think you gotta be a little invested in that kind of stuff.
That's true. So I think what was, I mean, was your first job in film or was it something which was in media? I mean, how did you sort of get into the film industry essentially?
How did I get into the film industry? My first job was writing the odds, actually. Um,
Okay.
I was 18 or 19 when Megha, the director of what are the odds, got in touch with me because I was making these videos online and she thought I was interesting. So she asked me to come over and she said, "Hey, I have this story about two teenagers and they are very interesting characters. I feel like you would be able to voice their dialogues really well." So I was only 18 or 19 when I got that opportunity and I was thrilled. It was like my first paycheck ever. And after that, I was not doing it as a full-time job. It was more like an internship with Megha, who's an actual screenwriter, and I was just like helping her out. And I was still going to college, and I still had a goal to move to the States and work there because I felt like my voice aligned more with um, you know the stuff that's coming out of America. And so I did end up finishing my bachelor's in mass media, and then I did a few jobs here. I worked as a writer at Homegrown, which was an independent media house. And then I was working at an ad agency as well, just like for experience before I moved to the States. And then and the odds was just like a project that was on the sidelines. Like I would keep meeting her and we would keep writing, but it wasn't anything serious. It was never like, oh, this is going to get made today or tomorrow. It was just like one day maybe it'll get made, so we'll just keep writing this.
Mhm.
And yeah, so my all my jobs were in the sphere of like writing and creative industries. Like it was just, yeah, I was never doing anything like different.
Okay. So I just wanted to briefly touch upon what are the odds. So what are the odds is a film starring Abhay Deol, Yashaswini Dayama, and Karanvir Malhotra. The film tells the story of two unintentional teenage friends who end up spending an entire day together, and it's filled with adventure and laughter, and a few surprises. So now this film actually hit Netflix last year,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people have liked it, and people have responded to it pretty well. What I wanted to know is also it's the film has a very sort of particular kind of voice. It has, again, I mean, it follows these two teenagers, but having seen the film, I think more than once, I also, it has a particular aesthetic. It has a particular kind of um, how do I put it? Aesthetic, a look, a feel,
Yeah,
also a certain kind of voice. So,
yeah.
was that something that came about? Was it something pre-decided when you went into writing? What are the odds, or was it something that organically sort of came about?
It wasn't redecided. You know, I didn't even think it was too weird when I was writing it. I was like, this is just a normal movie. It felt like Thelma and Louise or something. It felt very, like, yeah, just about a story about two kids and about their day. And as we were writing it, it got weirder and weirder. And we were like, maybe it'll be funny if, like, it was organically evolving into that space. It didn't have the intention from before to be this weirdo, surreal movie. You know, it didn't have that at all. But all we knew is it was about these kids, and there are no stories about teenagers who you know, in school and
Mhm.
simple, and they just have these really like naive dreams about the world, and they're only like 16, 17 years old, and what it's like, everything is
Mhm.
so big, like every feeling is so big. And at that time when I was writing it, I had a lot of those feelings, which I still do even at 28. Very emotional, and whatever. So that was the intention of writing it. And actually, when we went to shoot it, I was like, this was not what I had imagined when I was writing it, but I was pleasantly surprised at how the movie came together and people liked it, so that was cool.
So, going from writing it with no expectation of or some expectation maybe later in the future of getting it made to actually getting it made and out on a platform. So how did that happen? How did the film actually wind up being shot?
Because people believed in it. I think I didn't. I mean, I was surprised that Apurva and Pooja, the producers on this, thought that it was a cool story. You know, I remember I was in New York at the when I heard that someone was interested, and so when I came back in December for the Christmas holidays, I remember going for like a narration with Pooja and Apurva there, and we were like reading out the script which I hadn't read in like almost like 3 or 4 years, because I hadn't like, we really thought it wasn't going to happen, like at least I did. I don't know about Megha, but and then when I was reading it out, you know, they were laughing and they thought it was funny. They thought it was weird, but they thought there was something there, and then they said, hey, we're going to try and do this, we're going to try and make this. But honestly, Aadyaa, it was a long process. Like it wasn't just like that. Like it took a while for people to read it and get back to us, and then even when they did, it was like a long process of like getting the crew together, making it. After making it, we had to like wait a couple of years till it came out. So it's been quite a journey, I think, with this movie. Which is why I say when I wrote it, I didn't really imagine it to go out in the universe the way it did, or Netflix, like during quarantine. I wouldn't have imagined, but like I think it's very fitting for this movie to have come out that way. I think it had its own destiny, honestly. Not to sound corny, but
No, because ultimately I think everything works out in some way or the other for the best. So
yeah.
it was very interesting to sort of also see people really took to it very quickly after watching it, and that's always a great thing. What I also wanted to know is, you mentioned New York. So were you working in New York at that point, or what were you doing?
I was working in New York because I had already finished my masters. I studied at Boston University. I was doing my masters in media ventures. Um, and it was a bi-coastal program, so it was like in Boston, and then you go to LA and you finish the program there, and then you have like an internship, which I interned at a YouTube company in LA. And then I did a couple of jobs in LA, and then I decided to move to New York because I had family there, and I felt like it was just, I felt more grounded in New York. So I moved there hoping to work, and I didn't know what I was going to do.
Mhm.
Basically, I wasn't equipped to understand the landscape of what it is to be a budding writer from India who wants to somehow make it in New York. It's not easy. You know, I remember like telling someone on a production crew once that they were like, so what do you want to do? Because I was an assistant at the time. I said, well, I want to be a writer. And they said, everyone wants to be a writer. And I said, oh, okay, so this is the game. Everyone wants to be a writer. And when you say that, they literally look at you like, it's not going to happen. It's really tough.
Mm.
So it was tough, and it was a very humbling experience because I didn't obviously get any writing assistant jobs. I had no experience beyond the odds, which I couldn't even prove was a movie at the time. It was just a draft I had written. So I got production assistant jobs at a lot of shoots. Like I worked on 7 Seconds, which is a Netflix show, and this other independent movie, um, also on Netflix. And I worked with Irrfan on Puzzle, which I was his personal assistant, Irrfan Khan. And then I think I was almost done. And then I got a call that the odds is happening, so I moved.
Oh, okay. But that's quite a whirlwind of a journey where you're abroad and you're doing these different things, trying to figure it out. And at the same time, you're this is the system of working in film abroad very different from the industry or the way of working in India?
It is. It's more, I don't know, for the lack of a better word, professional. I think there's a lot of regulations in terms of working overtime. You get paid for working overtime. Um, Everything is delegated within us. I mean, it is here as well, but I feel like here there are lots of loopholes in the system, and there it's like extremely, people take um like like you have to be in the SAG to get like even an extra credit in anything. Like you can't just, you get paid to be an extra. Like there are rules within
Mhm.
place for everything, even actors or like a DOP or anyone. um and yeah, it's tough because it's a very well oiled machine, and there's no there's no room for error, honestly, like very little room for error. So it's just different. It's for someone who has no experience, and I felt like a little bit of like, what the hell is happening. Like I wasn't really good at being a production assistant because I sucked. But it was definitely daunting. And I don't know how it is shooting a movie here. I mean, I've had only like one experience with this, with the odds. um, so I really can't say much about the system here, but I do know that you don't really get paid overtime here. And it's different here. It's like it's all based on connections, and things are I don't know, things work differently here. There's a different I don't know what the word is. I'm gonna find the word in my head, and I'll tell you. It's a different, I don't know, get back to me on that.
Different ecosystem.
Yeah, it's a
Ah.
different ecosystem.
Okay.
Definitely.
But what does a production assistant do exactly?
It's like basically like what India calls ADs.
Okay.
They have ADs as well, but then they have a bunch of production assistants below ADs who, um, it's like there is no actual one job, one thing for a production assistant to do. They can be doing everything.
Okay.
They literally are like the minions of the set. So they're told to get like clean scraps of the floor, control the crowds, make sure that the actors know their mark, take care of background actors. Sometimes it's also like getting breakfast for the director, getting food for the actors. It's honestly a lot of stuff. Like when I was personal assistant, I was doing everything. I was like shopping for Irfan's food and making sure he was I don't know, like holding his cigarettes while he acted, like anything. Like I'm just there. I'm a stand-in to do anything that you want.
Okay. I also want to, so I want to come back to work when you were working, I think, with Irfan Khan. I'll just come back to that in a moment. I also wanted to ask you about, I want to come back to the role of, I think, production assistant while I think you were working on 7 Seconds.
Mm.
So, which is a show on Netflix. So, I mean, how long would that kind of job usually last?
That lasts for about a month for how long the shoot is. But I was a substitute production assistant, so I got the job because someone else couldn't come on the day.
Okay.
And then so I showed up one day, and then they liked me, so they kept calling me back for I think a week or 2 weeks. So
Okay.
I was there for about 2 weeks, and my main job on that show was to make sure that the crowd, like we were shooting on actual streets, and they had to cordon off the streets, and there are actual like pedestrians walking, so you have to tell them not to move until the scene is shot. So that was my job.
Okay.
I remember just standing there with a headset on, and they would be like, okay, we're rolling. And when they said we're rolling, I would just be like, okay, no one move. And I would just tell crowds to wait until the scene is gone, and then that was my job.
Ah,
And it was
okay.
like, yeah, it was interesting.
It sounds like a very, was it a hectic job?
Yeah, because we were shooting in like Westchester in New York late in the night, and it was cold. I didn't know how to dress. Like I didn't know anything. I was just a stupid kid. So it was cold. I would stand on the street for like 7 8 hours, and yeah, it's not really a pretty job. It's a pretty hard job. When everyone who works on set are like beasts, they really are. They have some crazy motivation to do what they do. Um, but yeah, I think the coolest moment on that was when what's her name in 7 seconds, actress, it's her name R, the main actress. She's in Watchmen
She's also, I think, in Children of Men.
and His Congeniality. Wait,
Oh, I didn't know that.
she's very famous. Regina King.
Oh, Regina
So
King. Okay, okay.
so we were shooting with Regina King, and there was a car scene, and she was doing a scene, and I was right next to, like, behind the car. And as soon as she got out and they called cut, I remember she was walking back to her trailer, and she looked at me and she gave me like the warmest smile, like the warmest smile. And then I was just like, "That's it. I'm. This is why I was meant to be on this set." Just
Wow.
that moment sealed the deal. I was like, "Yeah, this is worth it." She was so
Wow.
nice.
That's really nice. I mean, that's
Yeah.
also, I think, with that kind of job, where I suppose you would be on your feet the whole day, and to get sort of, let's say, I think, was Regina King the lead in 7 Seconds?
Yeah, she was. She
So
was.
to get that sort of, just that little bit of interaction with the lead of the show is like really cool.
Plus, the people you meet on set, like the other production assistants and ADs and like general people, like they can be really nice when they aren't like stressed out.
Huh.
So when you find that window where they're like relaxed, they can
Hmm.
be really nice, and then you can meet some really interesting people, because everyone there is like super talented, and um, they they have like, I don't know. It's just I met a really lots of cool people. Even the crafty guy was so cool. Like the guy who I would obviously be at crafty a lot, and even he had such interesting stories. So you meet a lot of nice people.
Crafty, are they called craft services?
Yeah, craft services. And one thing about craft services, especially a Netflix produced show, there was like amazing food. They had like crazy spread of just different kinds of cereal, different kinds of oatmeal, like everything was just excessive. And I remember like towards the end of the day they would dump all of the leftover food into like the garbage can, and they would like just throw away donuts, throw away things. And I was just like, why dump all of this? And then I remember like once I was leaving and they said, do you want any of this? So I took like a bunch of cookies and muffins for my roommates back home, because I was like, this is crazy that they just throw out all the food. So it's like a legal rule that they have to do it. They have to like,
Yeah,
so sad.
that's true. Wastage is an issue.
It's such a big issue there. They really like don't. I was dying and I was like, you can't just throw out all of this stuff. I don't know.
Was it easy getting work when you were in the US?
No, it wasn't. I don't think I still carry a bit of like that rejection even today, because you try a lot. Like out of 100 interviews, you'll get like 5 if you're on a good day, and then usually you don't even get like any call back after an interview. Like at least in my case, it was very tough for me to get a job, because I didn't know who to connect to. Like I was like just trying my luck, and somehow I managed to work on like 3 Netflix shows. But it was only after a lot of trying that I get that.
Mhm.
And it wasn't, and I only realized later that this isn't my calling. Like I'm not meant to be working on set. I'm just meant to be sitting in a room writing, because that wasn't really exciting, and that
Mhm.
working on a set wasn't really meant for me. And I realized that like by the end.
Ah. But is this like working as a production assistant or working in some capacity behind the scenes? Is that the way you feel everyone in the film industry has their start? Like, do you have to have that kind of experience to begin or to start your career in the industry?
they say that it's really important to be a PA to get an understanding of how it functions, but I don't think that's the case anymore. I think
Mhm,
I think you can create opportunities and like for
mhm,
yourself without having to go through that grind.
mhm,
Uh, I don't think it's a necessary rite of passage to just become a. But maybe if you want to like become a director,
mhm,
it's it's probably better if you get like some experience of be at least do like 2 or 3 jobs minimum on set to know exactly how things function. But as a writer, I don't think you necessarily need to be
mhm,
a PA and do all that kind of stuff.
mm.
I don't
Okay.
think it's really important. Yeah.
I also just want to now touch upon when you were working on Puzzles, which is a film starring Irfan Khan and Kelly MacDonald.
Yeah,
And
what dream.
oh my God, I was really sort of I found it really interesting. I think when you had previously described the experience of working on that with me, I mean, working on the thing with
Yeah.
Irfan Khan and just having that experience. But I saw the film, I think a year or two after I think it had premiered at Sundance, was
Yes.
it?
Yes. Yeah.
And I saw it actually much later. It was coming on TV, and it's a beautiful film.
Yeah, it's a very sweet, touching story actually. Very nice.
Uh, so, what was your experience like working on that?
Man, that was like I really worked hard to get that job because I was aggressively networking with one of the producers when he said that there might be an opportunity to work on a movie with Irfan Khan. I was like, this has to be something that I do.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got the job, and it was just crazy. I was a personal assistant to him, so my only job was to cater to him, not to the set.
Okay.
It was like there were other people for that, but my main sole job was to just make sure that his needs are met.
Okay.
So I it started with picking him up at the airport, which, as you know, I was late that day.
Okay.
It was the first time I had to meet him, and I was late because I was traveling from Jersey and I had to go all the way to JFK airport. So I had no money, so I had to travel by train and somehow get there. I couldn't take a cab because I couldn't, like, they said that they wouldn't fund me for a cab. So I reached and he had already left for the hotel. And then I called him and I said, I'm so sorry, I was here like 10 minutes late. And then he came back to pick me up because he felt bad. So he came back and then he picked me up, and then we both went to the hotel. I put his stuff together, and he was so nice. Like, he was just like a normal human being. He was asking me about my life, and I was just it would all. I was very aware of the fact that I was getting a chance to be around him, but I had to play it very cool. So that's literally what I did. I think I played it too cool. Like, went another, like, I didn't even ask him for one picture. Like, the only picture we have is a group photo on set. But I never like went too far because I was like, this is too good an opportunity to ruin. But he was really nice. And yeah, we filmed for 2 weeks or something.
Mm-hmm.
And my main job was just to get him food and to um, make sure that he knows when to go to hair and makeup, and
Mm-hmm.
then escort him from the set back to his trailer and those kind of things. And during those moments, we would talk, and he would ask me about my life. And there were a lot of times where he would decide to eat somewhere else, so then I would join him for lunch, and it was just the two of us. And um, yeah, it was just great. I would never really, like, honestly can't believe I got so lucky to have that opportunity. And then Kelly McDonald was also so great. So she had an assistant who became a good friend of mine, and then the two of us would be the chatty assistants, and they would come. And actually, by the way, this is the craziest story. When I was on set on Puzzle, I remember Steve Buscemi came on set because
Wow.
he was, I think, one of the producers, and he came to say hi to Kelly McDonald, and then he came to say hi to Irfan Khan. And when he came, I was like, wait a minute, is this, am I dreaming? And he was just like, and then he looked at me and he said, hi. And I shook his hand and I was like, this is too unreal. Like, I can't believe this is my life. So there were obviously moments where I was like, I can't believe this is such a cliche. I'm living a Hollywood like dream. Um, but I had to play it cool. And that's what I
But
did.
that's actually so cool to hear that, you had
Yeah.
these interesting encounters with people within the system, known people, and yeah, man, it's
Like he just
uh,
came one day on set to just see how things are going. And I was like, this is just insane.
Steve Buscemi is from Boardwalk Empire, right?
Yeah.
And like a bunch of other
Like
Hollywood
a
films.
legend. I was like,
Uh,
insane. So that was my
uh,
life for a while.
okay.
And I did mess up on the job. And I remember once I went and gave him eggs because he had asked for eggs and avocado or something. And I went and I gave him his eggs, and he's like, "Where's the fork and knife?" I was like, how am I supposed to eat this? And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. And I had to run back and get cutlery. So there were things like that which I was just not aware only. Like I was just in a different state. I felt like I was like so stressed out. So, but he was very nice. He was very sweet. He obviously never reprimanded me or anything. He realized I was a little bit of a zoner.
But this does sound like a stressful job because overall, I also feel that like um, it just the entire sort of machinery of filmmaking or what it's at least like on set comes across as like lots of people working, and even if one person doesn't do their job, it can all sort of
Yeah,
it
and
can
then
affect everyone else's work. So it's like such a high pressure
oh,
job.
it's a very high pressure job. Like, and also if you aren't an experienced production assistant, it's like you're in second grade, but you're entering 10th grade. It's like you do not know how things are working, and it's just that. It's just that feeling of like, am I doing a good job? Am I okay? Is everyone mad at me? That constant conversation in your head, it's gonna be there unless you're like confident and you know your shit,
Mhm.
which takes years, by the way, to get there.
Mhm.
So I was just very stressed out. And I remember once I didn't knock on his door, but I I opened the door and he was changing. So I quickly closed the door, and
Okay.
the other production assistant caught on to that, and they asked me, did you just open the door? And I said, yeah, I opened the door because he was clothed like 2 minutes ago. And they were like, you should always knock.
Mm.
And I said, okay. So these things are so basic. You think you know
Yeah.
it and you think you'll do it. But in the moment, I swear you end up making so many mistakes, and then you hate yourself. For the entire day, I was like, I am the worst person. But nobody cares, honestly. They're not thinking about you, and you have to carry on with the scene, and you have to carry on with the day, and then you go home.
Mhm.
You come back the next day, and then you make another mistake. It's just that's the way. But it's too stressful, honestly. It's not for meek-hearted younglings like you and I.
That's true. That I agree.
We would just combust. No, we would be fine, but
I think we would be fine, a little scarred,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah,
fine.
yeah.
And I also, I mean, now if this is, I think your experience in America, and then I think after coming back, did you get straight into the production
Yeah,
for What Are the Odds?
yeah. I came and I remember like the second or third day I had like a meeting with all the ADs and Megha, and they were already discussing like the schedule of the shoot and pre-production. And one of the questions I had was what is my role in all of this? Because I've written this script with her, but on set, what am I supposed to do beyond just, I don't know, just standing around? So I told them that I want to be a part of the AD team and be involved in the actual shooting of the film. So that's when I decided to even AD on it. And yeah, then I did a lot of pre-production work. That went on till I think September, and then we started shooting in October. So it was immediate. Like as soon as I came back, I was thrown into this
Okay.
world of,
Okay.
yeah.
And what were your responsibilities like as an AD?
I was second AD, so I had to take care of the cast, which was the main leads, Yashaswini and Karan. So it was everything. It was making sure that they have their costume fittings, their makeup, making sure they knew their lines, rehearsing with them, doing workshops with them, and then on set it was, you know, it was a lot of stuff. It was printing the next day's lines, making sure that they came to set on time, bringing them to the actual scenes fully clothed. Like it was just a lot of that. I was
Okay.
just their nanny for like 2 or 3 months. Yeah, Shaswani and I were literally like sleeping in the same room, in the same bed. I would see her face like every day.
Okay.
That was my life.
How long was the shoot for?
I think it was for a total of 40 days, split between Pune and Bombay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool. And
it's fun.
I also know that you've done Closeted Comic.
Hmm.
So, Closeted Comic is out on YouTube. It's a story about a young woman that makes videos in her closet as a way to express herself, starring Yashaswini Dayama. So, I'm guessing, I think you and Yashaswini probably, did you end up casting Yashaswini through working on the odds?
Yeah, I worked with her on the odds. I thought she was so talented and such a good actor, and also she became a good friend of mine. And then I was like, okay, who else is going to play this part but Yashaswini? So I kind of forced her to do it, and then she said, "Fine, I'll do it." I said, "I promise it's not going to be longer than 5 days, and you won't have to worry about anything. I'll handle everything else." So yeah, that's how we did it, and I decided to do that honestly because I was just like, after the odds ended, like a lot of the ADs who worked on the odds, like me, Ajay, then there was a costume assistant, Sudiksha. We were like, what's going on? Like, we had no direction suddenly, so we just thought we'd make something.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided to get creative and make something, shoot it on an iPhone. And it felt like a college project, like the way we did it. It was very cute. So, yeah, just put it out there on YouTube.
So, you've written, directed, and edited it.
Yeah, it was a bad decision, honestly. Need to learn how to delegate because that I think burnt me out a bit. Doing
Okay.
everything.
Okay. What I found interesting was I remember I was there for I think a little bit of the shooting of it, and I remember watching you direct,
Mm-hmm.
and I only sort of knew you as a writer. So
Mm-hmm.
to see you direct was very interesting because you were so sure of what you wanted and the way you were sort of handling the scene. So what I wanted to know is, did that surety of knowing what you wanted come through your experience as an AD
Mm-hmm.
and maybe watching something being directed or something like that?
Uh, I'm sure I did. I mean, after watching Mega Direct and a few others, but I feel like it's just a basic instinct thing. It's just like when you're directing something you've written yourself, you kind of know the vision already. You just have to sort of explain that to your actors, and
Mhm.
yeah, it's just easy when you know what you want. So then
Mhm.
it's just like, yeah, this is what you're supposed to do in the scene, and I have an eye for, I guess, and emotionally like what I want from an actor. Like I told Yash like exactly what kind of emotion she needs to bring out in a scene, and maybe like I would tell her, okay, this is what I meant with the dialogue, blah blah, and that's it. I don't think I thought too much into it. I honestly wasn't even. I didn't even realize I was directing. I just thought we were like putting on a play, because it was happening in such an informal way. So it
Mhm.
was just like all of us huddling together in this one tiny location and us trying to film something with a small iPhone. And I was just like using, I mean, okay, this can happen, and then why don't we do this? It was like improvising and like
Mhm.
playing along. It wasn't like I was like sitting in my chair and going like action, you know.
Mhm.
It was very like impromptu and instinct,
Mhm.
which I think is the way one should do it, at least for the first time. Like, it feels
Hmm.
fun.
Cool. How did the decision to edit come about?
I love editing, and I have a very specific vision when I edit, which I feel very scared to give someone else, like the things I've shot, because I'm like, I wouldn't know how they would put these things together. Because the way we shot it was very not haphazard, but only we knew what we were doing.
Okay.
So to give like a third person that footage, I felt like very scared and honestly a little protective. So I decided to edit it myself. And I'm I don't know, that was probably a wrong move because I got exhausted by the end of it. Like, I was just like tired because I went through a lot of. I edited the whole show, and then the hard disk crashed. And then I had to edit
Okay.
it all over again, and that was tough. So
Ah.
by the time it was done, I was just like, I'm just putting this out there, but I think I didn't have any expectations from it. I was just like, I'm just glad it's over with, you know.
Okay.
But it's still a cute show, and when people wrote to me saying that they watched it and they liked it, it was just, I was shocked because I had never thought anyone would. So that's it's just always nice. I think
That's
that's
great.
one thing that everyone should do is just make something and put it out there, because I
Mhm.
think there's just something, there's a different kind of reward in it.
Mhm.
Definitely.
What I also wanted to know is, I think with writing also comes, also, I think I mentioned um, writers having their voices earlier in the interview. So it's again a very integral part I've seen when it comes to, I think, any kind of writing, whether it be screenwriting or, writing novels or writing in any medium. How did you know when you found your voice?
I'm not sure if I've found my voice yet. Such a corny answer, but it's true. Like, you you try to sound and as honestly as you can. That's like the goal.
Mhm.
But I don't know. Like, my voice will always keep changing with the experiences I have. But you know what gives me validation is when I write something like a scene, and someone reads it and says, that was so relatable. Like, I read that and I felt like I felt the same way or something. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because I have no perspective on my voice. I just write what I feel.
Mhm.
And I'm not really like, I don't have any objectivity on what I'm writing. Like anything, it can be a short story as well. I'm just writing it, and then when someone reads it and then they give me that validation, that's when I'm like, oh, okay, this this, I guess, it resonates with someone. So
Mhm.
I just try to sound and write as honestly as I can.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's all I try to do, even with the scripts I write, or just try to break down the bullshit and try to seem as sincere as possible. Like, that's always been my brand, I think, is sincere.
Mhm.
So it's always what I want to do, I guess.
Um, One thing I also wanted to ask is, what exactly does screenwriting involve?
Wow, that honestly, I am I never went to school for screenwriting, so I haven't been formally taught how to do it, which I wish I did a course on it. So it's a lot of trial and error. I don't think there are rules to it, but there are guidelines that one should follow. um Definitely, like, if it's a script, like, know what it is that you really want to talk about generally in the story. And it's all about being disciplined. I feel like a screenwriter, that's one thing that's specifically for me. I need to know, like, what I'm trying to achieve with any kind of thing that I'm writing, and then create like a system of, like, okay, this is how I'm going to get there. It's like break it down into acts, follow that whole rule, whatever, but try and within the guidelines, try and make it as unique as possible, as true as possible to your voice, which is the challenge, is to not just be a run of the mill writer, but have something really interesting to say that's not said before or not done before. But still, it's still math at the end of the day. Like, you still have to hit all those marks, otherwise it's just going to be a very scattered script. So I think guidelines help, but otherwise there are no rules to screenwriting. You can just do whatever you want, I think so.
You mentioned very specifically, I think, writing honestly and basically almost, I think, somewhere being true to yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I like stories that feel like, I don't know. I usually write like autobiographical stuff anyway. So,
Mhm.
like, my own experiences. So, yeah, I feel like that's the beauty of stories, is when it feels real, like it feels almost like a true story. Like, it doesn't feel like fiction or whatever, it just feels like this has some truth to it. So
Hmm.
I try to, like, write from what I know and what I've experienced and somehow put it out there. And that's what makes things funny or relatable or whatever. Um, the challenge in screenwriting is to take an experience that you have and make it into a scene.
Mhm.
Transfer an experience to a scene is where the craft comes in. How do I
Mhm.
do that? How do I make an experience I have, create a scene around it, and then connect scenes and make characters interesting? Like, that's the actual creation part, which
Mhm.
you need to keep doing to get better at. You know, um, otherwise everyone would be a writer, but it is pretty tough. It's a tough job because you have to, like, you have all these experiences, but actually putting pen to paper and creating something out of it is what is tough.
Mhm.
But the best, like you were saying, the staying true to yourself is the best way to guide you from point A to point B.
um but I think so. You mentioned also now honing your craft. Like that's where the craft comes in, where you're actually the act of creation. What do you have to do to get better at it? To actually get, let's say, a story which, even though it's a story you want to tell, you might, let's say, recognize it's too run of the mill. You want to make it something more. So, what do you have to do from, let's say, having it here to bring it here all the way up?
You have to keep trying. So that's the exhausting part, but it is the inevitable. You have to
Mhm.
keep um, writing something. Initially is just like, throw it in the garbage. It's not really going to be of any use because you're going to hate what you've written, or you're going to keep picking it apart, but it's a skeleton, and then you have to keep working from that. And you will find what's missing. If you have that intuitiveness in you, you'll know what's missing. Or even if you can exactly, like, find out, okay, something is missing,
Mhm.
that's also a big step, because then you're like, okay, I have this, what I don't have is this. And then you just have to, like, work at it. Like, you just have to do permutations and combinations till you get. And it does take time to get better. Like, there's no simple way about, like, I think you just have to put in time, write like a lot of drafts, and I think it helps to have one or two trusted people in your life who you can go to with your ideas and make them read your material and let them be really honest with you about what they liked, what they didn't like. Because sometimes you think something is really not working, and then someone's like, I really like that part, you should keep that in, but the other stuff was too wordy and long, maybe you can cut that out. So it's good to have like other people's perspective, which
Mm-hmm.
I think helps. Like, you don't have to send it to too many people, but just like one or two other people who you trust with their opinion. For me, it's like two of my best friends. I usually send them most of my stuff. Even if it's like the first draft, I just send it to them because I'm not embarrassed about it. I just, they'll always give me feedback, and so yeah, it comes with that, obviously, and then soon enough you'll get it. And it's just about that. It's about, even with math, I feel like it's the same, right? Like, you don't really get good at math until you do like so many equations, and by the time you know your stuff, you can write like a, you can do a full equation
Mm-hmm.
without thinking too much. It's the same with writing, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I'm saying writers are geniuses, Adya. We're mathematicians, we're scientists, okay? We're doing.
Most definitely, most definitely. I'm in complete agreement there. Uh,
Oh, good to know we're on the same page.
cool, cool. um, in terms of, I think, working within the industry as a writer, I mean, is it easy? Is it difficult? Is it somewhere in the middle?
It is it is easy and difficult. Like, I don't know how to explain. It is easy because my voice is technically not um some people would consider, okay, this is a different one. This is a little bit not so common. So that puts me in a space, I guess, which is like, okay, I have created a little bit of a white space for myself. But to actually be a writer is tough in itself. To do this job it's not easy. So whether it's in an industry or not, just to do it is tough. And uh, I think it's, as long as you like, you have an agent and you have other people taking care of things for you on the other side, it's easy. But if you decide to be a hustler and get stuff made and network and stuff, then it's pretty difficult.
Hmm.
But that shouldn't stop anyone from doing it, because like, more voices need to be heard and more people need to be doing this. There's a lack of writers, more people need to be writing cool stuff, I feel.
Mhm. And I think just last,
Very so basically I'm saying, I don't know what I just said in there. It's difficult and easy. It's the way
yeah,
you do it. It's like,
yeah, yeah. I feel I mean, it's
what do you
kind of, what do I think? I think it depends on what situation you are in, because like you said, the networking bits are difficult.
yeah.
The writing bits are not so bad, because like for someone like me, if I'm alone in a room with a computer typing away, I'm good. I'm okay. I feel like I'm self-sufficient then. The thing is, then when you're actually going for meetings, or when you actually, if you want to pitch, and then having to also face rejection, having to face feedback which you don't necessarily, are vibing with, that all has to somewhere, it's just some like extra stuff you just have to learn to deal with within the industry. Eventually if something gets made, great, but if you've like spent a lot of time on something, and it's not getting seen um through pre-production right till hitting a platform, it can be, a little difficult. The getting work aspects also are quite difficult. Like everything around doing the writing work seems like a bit of a hustle, and it seems like it takes lot more work than writing actually does.
Yeah. I think yeah, that's because people want fast products and things
Ah.
to move really quick. But one thing I've noticed is that a lot of writers do let that rejection get to them, and then they become very negative with their approach to everything. And I've noticed that with my peers as well, is that they just kind of lose themselves in
Hmm.
this. I don't know. I feel like don't lose that magic in you when it comes to wanting to tell a story and wanting it to happen. That shouldn't ever get lost in this stupid business. That's something you have to protect that.
Hmm.
Other people will come, and there will be a lot of these instances where you'll feel shortchanged, and you'll feel like your vision is going somewhere else, or you're not really happy with the feedback you're getting. And that's fine, like you said, that's part of the process, and every writer goes through that. But that shouldn't just make you a miserable person.
Mhm.
It shouldn't then you've lost to the monster. You shouldn't do that. Should keep wanting to tell stories. That's all we have.
Just last question. How has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted working in the industry as a writer?
It's been a strange experience, but not too bad, because I still don't know if I'm a writer, screenwriter. I mean, I have written stuff, but I don't know. I don't know if this is gonna be my job forever.
Mhm.
It's definitely something that if someone gives me a great opportunity, I'd do it. But I'm trying to now pivot a bit and look into other venues, maybe like editing, and maybe, I don't know, just creative producing or doing something different, because I feel like this is that the pandemic really made me evaluate, do I actually like writing, and do I actually enjoy this? Does
Mhm.
it give, um, the world is changing so quick. So I was just like, got into that already a midlife crisis mode, where I was like, I need to evaluate what I'm doing. And I started editing, and I started this podcast of mine, and I was just like trying to get a little creative. And I got a writing job, and I've been doing that for the last 6 months. But as I was doing it, I was like, this is not giving me complete fulfillment. So it's basically made me reanalyze what I want to do in life. I definitely want to do something creative, but I do want to be I want to be financially independent and out of my parents' house soon. So I'm looking at different things to do as well. Like, even I was even like toying with the idea of starting my own business venture, because I did go to school for that. So I was like, I need to start thinking about other things. Uh, so yeah, I'm at that space right now, Adya. I'm thinking about a lot of things. But this was great.
It was really nice talking to you. Like, very
Yeah,
honestly.
I know. I mean, I haven't spoken like this much in, I think, years now because of COVID. So I feel like I must have gone on like total tangents, but I'm so glad I did this.
No,
And
and it was nice to get your perspective on things overall, because I think you have you've, I think, had experience both like within writing and on set, and to hear those experiences was really nice.
thank you. I'm really glad that I got to do this. I'm very excited to see it.
You can find our newest episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow our Instagram and Facebook pages for more updates in the description below.